Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to be joined from across the continent, all the way in Warsaw, by Keith Jackson and Scott McDermott. How you doing, guys?
Daniel.
Oh man, far too chuckle.
This is my on-screen persona.
Aye.
How's it going over there? How's the weather? How's things?
Freezing, absolutely freezing.
Sometimes at this time of year, you go on these trips, and without you're kind of blindsided a little bit, and you end up having to go to the game wearing everything that you took,
Every layer.
and everything. So I'm wearing my wardrobe here, basically. I'm kind of hoping that I know. Well, when we arrived, the roof was still shut, so I think that'll be it for the night. That might help temperature-wise, but oh my God, it's Baltic.
The roof shut, and as we walked in, Jack O'Betton asked the stewards to turn the heating on.
Make sure the big heater's going.
Excuse me, can you put the heating on, please? Yeah. Well, we're less than 2 hours. We're less than 2 hours before kick-off. Poland, Scotland, massive game, a final Nations League game in League A. The big talking point, guys, I know you obviously spoke to Steve Clarke yesterday. The big talking point has been around Ben Doak and whether or not he'll start tonight.
The old double bluff for the Scotland
That's
manager.
what we still can't work out. Is he bluffing or not? I hope he's bluffing.
I think he is.
I'm not sure.
I think it's a classic case of managers love to have the power, don't they? They love to toy with you, and they know better, and no player's guaranteed a place. I think it'd be a massive risk for Steve Clarke not to start Ben Doak, because if this game goes badly wrong and he hasn't started him after his performance the other night, serious questions would need to be asked. So,
okay, I mean, think about it.
I think he'll start.
This is the problem we've got here, right? That in his head, he might have a very good reason, and maybe it's sports science. I don't know. There might be a very good reason in his head why not Ben Doak, not tonight. Another player might do another job for the team. And he's done these things before where he catches everybody by surprise. And that's why you don't know if he's bluffing or not. Mm-hmm. But the easy answer is, well, do you know what? Everybody wants me to play Ben Doak. I play Ben Doak. What's the worst can happen? Right? We don't get the result. It doesn't quite happen, but nobody's going to come at me. But if I don't play Ben Doak, and Scotland lose and get relegated from the Nations League and drop into pot 3 for the World Cup qualifier, everybody, rightly or wrongly, will say, that's because you dropped Ben Doak. Exactly. And he's going to have to carry that. But Steve Clarke, this is where he's so impossible to read that it doesn't bother him either, does it? It doesn't bother him.
Why would you not start? I mean,
this is because you and I can't understand this, right? What I'm saying to you is just suppose... Go with me, right? Because you know that I can't see a reason for it. But let's just play devil's advocate here. Just suppose tactically or, player for player, that they've found a weakness that he believes that the Scotland starting 11 would be better served with, whether it's putting John McGinn in, taking Doak out, leaving the rest of the team as was. If he has spotted something and he believes that to be the right thing to do, he'll probably do it.
So taking away your attacking threat in a game that you need to go and win. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm only putting this forward as there might be something in his head. I can't see it.
I don't think it'll be tactical. I know we're joking about it. I think it will be sports sides. If he's left out, it'll be because somebody behind the scenes. He's 19.
See if there's a sports scientist in our group that looks at a 19-year-old and thinks that he can't play 2 games in 4 days, then the sports scientist knows nothing.
It's madness.
About kids, about... Yeah. I mean, I'm saying that, right? That probably sounds a bit, I don't know, crass or blunt. Because obviously sports scientists know stuff. They're scientists, they're boffins, right? So they know some stuff. But to me, it just defies all logic. And of all the players in the squad, the one that's aged 19 should be able to cope with two games in 4 days. The easiest. He should be able to cope with 4 days in 4 games.
I thought so. There's also very people answer, you ask Bendo, how you're
How you feeling, me man?
Yeah,
exactly.
I guarantee you what the answer is.
Exactly. So, listen, he has to play. It's a game. It's a game we need to win. He's man of the match the other night against a £80 million defender, as we discussed last night. I'd be amazed if he doesn't start. Honestly, absolutely.
But you know the other thing, Daniel, it gives me a little bit of cause for concern. That's why I asked the question last night, because I think, I think he's thinking about dropping Ben Doak. I had to ask him, and that's why I said, are you saying that maybe is 2 games in 4 days too much for him? And that's when he came away with a line about, well, that's why I haven't named the team just now. We're going to have to see. It's like, oh my God, I think he's genuinely hasn't made up his mind yet. Now we'll see, but there is this other aspect. Is he bluffing? Is he just bluffing? Is he bluffing, trying to bluff Poland? Is he trying to bluff? I don't know why you would want to bluff the media. I mean, we're only here as the middlemen. We're only here as the middlemen to give the words back to the fans back home. And if you've done it to try and bluff us, and we tell the fans, this is what he's saying, by the way, because you can hear it for yourself, you see it on video, he said it, then the fans back home are saying, I actually think it is counterproductive for Steve, because there'll be fans right now, I think, back home, raging at the thought that he's even dropping Ben Doak.
Do you think the fans that were at Hampden the other night, the ones that have now travelled to Warsaw,
and they're singing songs about him in the bars all over Warsaw,
that they've literally been off the seats the other night as he's terrorising Gabriel? They've never been so excited about a young Scottish winger for years.
And we go into the must-game match.
They travel to Warsaw, and he's no starting. Yes.
Well, look, as you can probably imagine, guys, it's generated a really strong response on Record Sports social media channels. But before we do that, let's hear a little bit from Steve Clarke yesterday as you guys caught up with him in his pre-match press conference.
After Friday's game, we talked about the progression that there's been over the course of this campaign, Steve. Does that mean that we're going into this game, the last game, in a far better, much better shape? You're much happier with how the team is looking compared to how you were when we first played Poland at the start of the group?
There's been a progression for sure. Obviously came in off the back of another appearance at a major tournament in the summer where we felt as though we could have done a little bit better. You have to build on that, you have to park that if you like, and then move on. And I think we've managed to do that in this campaign. So are we in a better shape? We'll find out tomorrow night.
Is it about finishing the job? I mean, they've done so well now the last couple of games to get into the mix here. Is that the challenge? Go and finish this job off?
I think the challenge for us is just to come to a difficult place away from home against one of the top European sides and get a positive result. And if we can make that positive result 3 points, then that would be great for everybody.
I mentioned to you guys before we came on air that surprisingly, there's been a lot of people on Record Sports social media channels that aren't completely against dropping Ben Doak. I'm saying, let me read a few out. Paul Scott, Ben Doak's a super player, but let's not burn him out. Who else is breaking through? We need to look after the upcoming young talent for the future.
Let's look after the young talent by no playing them.
Aye, let's just drip feed him in. Like 1 game every 6 months sounds about right. Let's not burn them out, guys.
Peter Taylor, he put a lot into the game on Friday, so it wouldn't be a total surprise. Definitely play some point. But I think Kevin Lord definitely reflects, I would suggest, the body politic of the Scotland fans by saying, can we all agree that if Ben Doak is dropped tonight, we riot? Yeah? I mean, I
like that. Who's that, Kevin? Well, I like that, Kevin.
I'm with you guys that I think it would be absurd not to play him. I mean, I can't even, and with one of the comments here in the comment section live, Kevin Roxburgh, it's maybe tactics he's bluffing. And Mark Fairfield says, it's a cup final, play the best team. The question is, does he know it? I mean, guys, surely, goodness, he's got to play Ben Doak.
Do you know another thing that worries me, right? And I'm struggling to get my head around. Because we're in the media, we're always doing, you're negative, you're too negative, you're down on everything. Along comes this kid who could be really something special. Nobody's going too overboard. We're not saying that he's Lamine Yamal just yet. We're saying that he gives us something that we've not had in years. And if he grows, and yes, I get this need to protect and all that, but let the boy play. And what I struggle with a little bit is that we're the negative guys, and yet we're sitting there at a press conference in front of the European audience, and Steve Clark's sitting there saying, well, you know, you guys think he's good on the ball and you get excited about it, but, you know, we're looking at it and all these things that he's not doing right. You think, why are you being so negative? How can you call us negative?
The Polish press who watched Doak the other night, they must have been watching the Scotland press. I think, is this for real? They're actually playing down this kid. They'll be thinking if Frida boy like us would be championing him to the hilt.
So the kind of finger of accusation is jabbed towards us. Too negative. You're too negative. Yeah. Then we find something to be positive about. You're too positive.
David Nevison has sent us in, guys, right? Dropping Doak would simply confirm that Clark is not up to the job. And you mentioned it, Keith, right? That he might be setting himself up a little bit here. I think more than he realises. I think if he doesn't play Doak tonight and we don't get a result, it's really bad.
Here's the other thing, right? And this is the thing that I've come to realise with Steve Clark. He is difficult to second guess. And maybe a lot of the fans won't agree with what I'm about to say here. But you know what? In my estimation, most of the times he gets these decisions right. He calls them right. If he wasn't getting them right, we wouldn't just have qualified for 2 tournaments. We wouldn't be playing in the top pot of Nations League. Most of the time, he gets the big calls right.
He has got a couple of big ones.
He's got a couple of big wrong. Yep, no doubt about it. However, I come back to this, right? Just say that he does think the team would be better off without Doak tonight. For the starting 11 anyway, right? And he does make a change that nobody else would envisage. I wouldn't rule out Steve Clark actually being proven right on that we might get the win, that Doak comes off the bench and gets... That, because he does have a habit of making the big calls right. I mean, I still look back to the game against Germany in the first game of the Euros, and for the life of me, I can't fathom, and we talked about it plenty of times, what he was doing that night, why Billy Gilmour started on the bench. It just made no sense. And this would be along the same sort of lines. It would make no sense, but it might make sense to him. And what I'm saying is, if he's right, if he's seen something, and we talked about it the other night when he made the defensive substitution at half-time, pulls off Hanley, puts on McKenna, and you're thinking Hanley must have an injury. But he actually made a defensive substitution to make our attack better. And these are the sort of and you know, sometimes they can be guilty of trying to reinvent the wheel and overthinking things. And maybe this might prove to be an example. All I'm saying is, if he does make this change, if Doak doesn't start, don't be surprised if he gets away with it. Or not if he gets away with it, but if he's proven to be right.
See the thing with managers, they hate
being questioned.
Yeah, but they also hate fans picking the team for them.
Yeah,
you know that way?
Yeah, they do.
See when there's a clamour for somebody to play.
Very often, a guy like Steve Clark in particular,
stubborn. They just think, no, I'm picking the team.
I'm the guy.
I know what I'm doing. And my fear is that's what's going through his mind. He sees and hears all this noise about Ben Doak. He doesn't like the fact that people are maybe getting carried away and we're going to get ideas above our station. So he might see this as just a chance to
recalibrate.
Simmer that down a wee bit.
Now, what he did do in yesterday's press conference, broadcasters get the first kind of few questions, and the BBC asked 3 or 4 questions about what's the mood in the camp, sort of thing, before getting round to a Ben Doak question. And he actually said, well, congratulations that it took 3 or 4 questions before we got around to talking about Ben. I appreciate that.
So he's getting fed up.
There's a little bit of needle there. Right away, the first thing he's saying is, I'm getting fed up talking about Ben Doak. We're bigger than Ben Doak. Seem to be the subtext to that. Now, he needs to be careful because that's a dangerous road. And I know he will say, and the argument will be, this is all about protection and try to, you know, keep him out of the limelight and deal with expectations, limit them, keep them, some of them down, as you said. But it doesn't come across necessarily that way. It's almost like, oh, well, yeah, we were getting along fine just, you know, before Ben Doak suddenly arrived.
Oh, hey, listen, we know he's a manager that absolutely hates the idea of any team being a one-man team, because he's all about the collective and everybody what he hate. I think he almost... We'll say obviously wants a superstar player, but I think he hates the prospect of it all being about him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? When you get a bit of success.
So. And the other thing was, so that was at the start of the press conference, and then towards the end, I've then said to him, "Hold on, Steve, reading between the lines here, are you saying that you might not start with Ben Doak? Is it 2 games in 4 days too much? Yeah, that's why we're kind of just having to wait. And then the follow-up question came from one of my colleagues, which was along the lines of, but Steve, do you understand how many disappointed people there will be if Ben Doak doesn't start this game? Yes, that's my job. Yeah. And then he kind of smiled at the thought.
To disappoint
yeah, it's my job to disappoint you guys. Excellent at it.
I've done it before and I'll do it again.
And by the way, just when you think I've found every way of disappointing you that possibly out there, here's a new one.
I've come up with another
We've
one.
finally got a superstar, and I'm not going to play him. Now, see how you like that.
Just the way you said that there, Scott, I've come up with another one. Right, there's a couple of wee domestic matters that I want to talk about. So, but before we move on, how do you see it playing out? How do you think Scotland's Nations League campaign will end? Will we get the win tonight? How's it going to go?
Well, I think the two of us, once again, have gone with the same prediction. 1-0 Scotland. And I'm look, do you know what? I'm hoping that any minute now, by the way, we're in the press room. I'm looking about to see, might even go a wander and leave you talk to Scott, see if I can get this team news. Because obviously so much hinges on that. So much hinges on what's this Ben Doak decision, what's he doing? It'll be fascinating to see. I hope that he was bluffing. I think Ben Doak starts. But if it's not Ben Doak, then what is it? And what has he seen and what is he trying to do? And I keep coming back to it.
Because you can't replicate Doak's pace.
But any other else. No, there has to be a total change to the system and what you're trying to implement. Yeah. So I'll be fascinated to see that. And you know, maybe the prediction, but I was going to say maybe the prediction changes depending on the team sheet. But then you've either got faith in the manager or you don't. And at this minute in time, I do have faith in him. So whatever it is that he's about to come up with, disappointing or not, I'm sticking with it. I think we're going to get the win here. I think we've been building momentum all the way through this campaign. We're now look like a side that's getting into its stride. The players believe in him. Whether or not we want to criticise or question decisions, the players believe in him. They believe in each other, and they're coming here with their tails up against a Poland side that are really not in a great place right now with their own public, perhaps with the manager, the whole thing, the whole mood music around Poland's not great. For all those reasons, and the fact that we've got Ben Doak, whether he's on the bench or whether he starts, I'm sticking with 1-0 Scotland.
I think the first goal will be key, Daniel. I think if
there's only one goal.
Scotland first goal, I think we're going to win it. I think that could obviously turn the Polish crowd. I think it would give us a massive boost. I mean, I think the players are getting into it with real confidence anyway after the other night. Listen, obviously, if they go behind, they're going to have a job in their hands. No, over here in this stadium to turn it around and then go and win it. So I think the first goal is absolutely vital. But I said last night, I think if we can get that early, then it would be a major blow to them. And I could see us just with the wee bit of momentum that Jack was talking about. I could see us getting on and winning it. So I'm going to stick with my 1-0 prediction. Here's hope.
And I should say, everyone watching at home, as soon as we get team news, we will bring it to you live here on the Hotline Live. Right.
See if you get it in your kitchen before we get it in the press room at the stadium, I'll be pretty disappointed. And myself, and in you, by the way.
I'd be buzzing if I got that first. I'm going to keep refreshing Twitter. Right, Scott, your excellent interview with Connor Goldson continued today in today's Daily Records, Record Sport Online. I said yesterday that it's definitely required reading for Rangers fans, and in today's instalment, he talked all about the standards that have declined at Rangers. He had a lot to say, Connor Goldson.
Well, I think he said that the standards dropped the minute Steven Gerrard left the club, which is really interesting, given that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in and took Rangers to a European final. But I think if you read into the piece, he wasn't critical on Gio. He just thought they were totally different, and he actually said that Gio's style of management was perfect for European football. He thinks that Gerrard couldn't have taken Rangers to that Europa League final, but he thinks Gerrard would have held on to the lead in the title race, that Gio obviously kind of surrendered that season. But you're right, the standards thing is interesting. He obviously spoke about the interview after the winning the title. We touched on it last night, that fixing the roof while the sun is shining. But Goldson knew pretty much in pre-season, the following season, that it wasn't going to happen. And I think what he meant by that was behind the scenes, but also on the playing side as well. There was a great quote about the pre-season training camp. He said the running that we'd done the previous season, suddenly some people didn't want to do that running anymore. And as soon as you let those standards slip, then I think you're going to be struggling. So fair play to him for being so honest.
I think, Scott, as well, you're making the comparison between Gerrard and Van Bronckhorst. They're very different personalities.
Yeah.
Gerrard was a firebrand.
Yeah.
Gerrard was a guy that would go up and batter doors and say, this isn't good enough. And I think Gio was more placid. And maybe that's what the Rangers board were kind of looking for. There are some board of directors, and particularly the not very good ones, who don't like being challenged.
Yeah.
And you can see that even with Clement just now. I think that some managers can be a little bit too much the hard work. I think Steven Gerrard would have been very, very demanding. And I think that subsequent to that, they've had managers who will do as they're told and not complain too much on the basis that they're probably quite happy to be there.
I think Connor Goldson knew that this wasn't in the piece, but just for talking to him, the kind of vibe I got, I think he knew that under Gerrard, that summer Rangers were in for certain players, and they wanted certain players that were going to kick them on
Take them to the next step.
Take them to the next level, and those players didn't arrive. And I don't think the standard of player that did come in was good enough. And I think as a senior figure in that dressing room, he felt disappointed by that. And listen, he absolutely loved, obviously, the whole European run with Gio and getting to Seville. Those nights at Ibrox, he says that no one will ever take them away from some of the best nights of his life. But I just think deep down, he felt, and obviously Gerrard felt, that when they won that title, the state of disarray Celtic were in at that time, having lost their manager, several key players. And I think a lot of Rangers fans believe this as well. That was the time to try and go and kick on and get out of sight almost after stopping the 10 in a row. Instead, Rangers stood still. Celtic, to their credit, brought in a brilliant manager in Postecoglou and managed to turn it round quickly. And Rangers, I think Goldson says himself, I think he says Rangers as a club have never been the same since that day.
Do you know what? It's no rocket science either. I mean, I remember Graham Souness when he was Rangers manager, and the oldest adage in the book is you build from a position of strength.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that has always been the way of it in football. And Rangers missed a trick that summer.
You can't stand still.
Yeah. As you probably won't be surprised to hear, guys, it's generated a really big response on Record Sports social media channels. And let me throw a couple of the comments at you right now. If I can find them. Alfredo says, people can say what they want about Goldson. We're in a much worse team without him back there and from set pieces. I'd take him back in a heartbeat. Ricky saying, this is the part Goldson is not getting in his interview. It's up to him and Tav to set the standards. Both have failed in a big way. Watching live on YouTube, Rangers Easy OK says, Goldson was a great servant for us. His comments about us not kicking on after the title win are correct. Let's not forget, he said him and the players weren't hungry after winning one league title. After they tanked in a cup semi-final, players have a lot to answer for that season after we won the title. The home draws early in that season that year were dire. If they were wins, Ange would have been Offski. And I'll finish with this one, which is actually a question for both of you. Johnny Lennox writes in saying, Goldson talks about declining standards, but who would the panel consider responsible for said drop in standards?
How far back do you want to go?
I think when there's any drop in standards, it starts for the top, doesn't it? It has to start for the top.
Well, I tell you, do you know what? And this is my genuine view on it, that it dates back to the financial collapse, that it dates back to the people that then came in guising as Rangers men with Rangers-itis, and And from that moment, everything about all the standards that have been put in place by men like Walter Smith, not men like Walter Smith, but by Walter Smith, everything was degraded right across the board, from the people who were in the boardroom to the people that were at the training ground to the people who were in charge of the academy. There was a lot of things went on during that period. Craig White, obviously, absolute car crash. Charles Green comes into the club and starts promising, I'll be listening to Champions League music. And
that was uncanny.
That was quite good, wasn't it? Yeah, you up, mate? So at that point, he starts pretending that he was rebuilding the foundations of a football club, when really what he's doing was box ticking, making it look as if people are looking, going, oh, look, he's filled that role at the academy, and he's done this, and he's handing out mince pies, and he's getting Jim Traynor to stand at a Christmas tree and write a poem. And people just bought it up, right? They lapped it up because they wanted it to be true. But you know what? It was a real false dawn, because what was really happening was there was a level of fraudulent people that were put in serious positions all across the football club, and that's when the standards disappeared. And you know what? Steven Gerrard was trying to rebuild. He was trying to bring those standards back. I think where they made a big mistake with Steven Gerrard is, having identified him, they should have trusted him. They should have said to him, Stephen, we don't just want you to be head coach here. Go and take a look down at Auchenhowie. Tell me where we're going wrong there. Tell me what we're doing wrong in that department of the club. Where are we going wrong with the kids? Give him, if you've picked the guy, you've identified him, you believe in him, if the board had let him lead at that point, I think they'd be a lot further down the road. But do you know what? They did the opposite thing. They said, no, we want to put our own people in place in these positions, because if Gerrard leaves us tomorrow, then the thing falls apart. We need to put a system in place where when we've got our own director of football, and then therefore you get guys like Ross Wilson and all these guys, and they were just as bad as the ones that were there before. And that's where they missed their shot. They had a clean slate, and Steven Gerrard, if they trusted him, could have went through the whole thing and given them real people, real recommendations. They didn't do it. They went the opposite way, and it just got worse. Yeah. And so, see, when you're talking about rebuilding standards, they're miles and miles and miles away from what they were when Walter Smith was manager, and before Craig White ever stepped across the front door.
One of the viewers, Daniel, mentioned there about Goldson comments after the semi-final. That was the semi-final against Hibs. The Rangers get battered at Hampden when David McCallum in the dugout waiting for Gio van Bronckhorst to come in, and
Gio sat upstairs and didn't come down.
Yeah, and certain people have obviously criticised Connor Goldson for those comments about not being hungry enough. But having spoke to him, that was him basically pleading. He felt as if he had to say something
to the rest of the players. To get the message
also out. To the board. I think the club. I think that was a desperate plea after that game for to the people upstairs and also to the whole squad that standards are slipping here.
I remember at the time. I remember at the time thinking, Scott, there's two ways of interpreting what he's saying here. One is that he's put his hands up saying, I'm not bothered, which I don't think was the right one, but it's easy to misinterpret it, especially if you want to.
Yeah.
The other one was, this is a guy standing up saying, I hate what I'm seeing around here. That's the way I felt at the time. I thought he was making an impassioned plea, probably inside his own dressing room for guys to get their finger out, but also all across the club, because he could see an opportunity getting missed right in front of his eyes. 100%. That's what I believe to be the case at the time, and I still do now. I think your interview just confirms it, to be fair.
The other Rangers news that I want to touch on, guys, is that I don't know if you've seen over in Warsaw, but Philip Clement has been tenuously linked with the Belgium job. Apparently, according to
the word tenuously,
seems pretty concrete, doesn't it?
Aye, well, fair enough. Listen, I'm just, bear with me. It's on the story on Record Sport Online today. He's leading a 5-man shortlist, which includes Thierry Henry, Hein Wackenbroek, Sergio Conceição, and Hervé Renard. Pretty remarkable considering everything all the firefighting he's doing at Ibrox just now.
You know what's the most remarkable thing?
No, I know what he's going to say. Go on.
Derek McInnes isn't on that list.
Don't worry, Jack will put in you.
You'll get him on somehow, won't he?
My bills in contact with him.
You'll go on it come tomorrow.
No, I can understand.
It's interesting.
In many ways, I tell you what, if I was John Gilligan, I would be sitting there, fingers, toes, the lot crossed, because what a perfect exit strategy this is for all parties. Everybody can walk away from the table thinking they've got a win.
Yep.
Belgian FA think he's really good. They haven't paid enough attention to what's going on. We've got our man. Rangers will need to get a nice big check because they've just given him an extended contract. And that, for the first time, you would say, well done, giving him the extended contract because you've just cashed in. Philippe Clement can get out of town knowing that he's in a really difficult death spiral sort of situation here.
Keith,
And he can get away with it.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but the Scotland team is out.
The team. I've got the
Ben-
team. I've got the team.
He's got the team.
Doak starts.
Then Doak starts.
Of course he
Doak
does.
starts. There was no
Doak
worries.
was all along.
Again
Craig,
in for Christie, you called that.
I
Jacko.
did. So Craig Gordon in goal, Tony Ralston, right back, Grant Hanley
Yeah,
wins his place back in the team with John Suter, Andy Robertson obviously left back. Then once again Kenny McLean and Billy Gilmore anchoring the midfield. McTominay will then play, I think, on the right hand side, again slightly to the left, behind Lyndon Dykes. So yeah, I think we got the big.
Only surprise, guys, was Hanley maybe.
Yeah, I was convinced McKenna would start. I must admit.
Me too.
But again, Steve Clark puts a lot of faith in guys. He trusts Grant Hanley. He's one of his kind of lieutenants in the squad. Even when he's not playing for Norwich, as we touched on last night. I thought McKenna made a real impact when he came on. Which sounds strange for a centre-back, but I thought he'd start just to give him that balance on the left, but he's obviously went with Hanley. And the other changes we kind of predicted. McGinn for Christie and Dykes for Conway. But let's just be very thankful that Ben Doak starts.
I know.
And it was a double bluff after all.
Well, I wonder if it was, maybe it's a triple bluff. Maybe last night.
It's going to that.
I don't know. I give up. But I am delighted that the young man is starting because I think that's best for all parties.
In all seriousness, this is going to be a game where, for periods in the game, we might be under the cosh and we're going to need to break quickly. And in some of the away games we've covered recently, Scotland have broken quickly, but maybe haven't had that searing pace or the final bit. You know what I mean? And you need to hope that Doak can give us that.
And tactically, this is the other thing, which is probably a bit late for us to bring it up now, but one of the reasons we should have been discussing at the start of the show. Poland are a very attack-minded team that play on the front foot and they like to get numbers forward. They will try and press deep into our half. They will get numbers up. The easiest way of combating that is to have a jet-paced guy. So it's just a ball over the top, and he'll turn that into a great ball because he's got the pace. By the way, if the Poles are pushing up, and they will, and their back line will come up high, you've almost got half a pitch to play into. You play the right ball, you only need to do it once. And with the guys that we've got, the technicians we've got in midfield and even at centre half, they can pick a pass. And it doesn't even need to be that accurate. Just play it into the right space, and Ben Doak will turn that into a good ball. And that, that's another reason as to why I would have struggled to understand why you wouldn't want Ben Doak in this team, because that might be the way that we really turn the Polish defence and we make them think twice about how far they want to come forward, because once this wee guy's running in behind you, you're not going to catch him.
I think modern football, any European away games, you need pace now. It's as simple as that, and we've not had it up until now. This Scotland team has lacked genuine pace, so it's just yet another reason why you need to play Doak. I mean, forget about burnout and all that. To go and your best chance of winning the game, you need pace, and well, he gives us that.
I actually feel a big weight of relief. Stand down, everybody.
We're fine.
False alarm.
Listen, Before I let you go, guys, Keith, I cut you off there a bit talking about Clermont in Belgium. Rangers' easy case is if we end up getting compensation for Clermont, that would be unbelievable. Problem being, we'd be in a position where an interim chairman is having to pick the manager. What could go wrong? It would be unbelievable, but do we just assume that Clermont would be interested in the Belgian job?
Well, Daniel, the key thing is, we spoke about it off air, is his former mentor, the guy he worked with before, I think at Bruges, is coming in as the Belgian FA's technical director. I don't think you can underestimate the significance of that. That's what makes this a real story for me.
Relationships are key in situations like this, and trust.
If this guy trusts Clermont and clearly believes he's an excellent coach, with the history they've got, why wouldn't he be high on the list? And even irrespective of everything Jacko spoke about the trouble he's having at Rangers, it's a chance for him to manage his country. And how many people turn that job down? And I agree with Keith. If it happens, it might just be the perfect storm.
I tell you what, though, there is a flip side to this scenario. Is that Rangers, being Rangers, tell Belgian FA, no, not at any price, no price. He's, oh man, we're standing by Big Phil. He gets to Hampden, he gets a 2-off Celtic. There's absolute uproar, and then they have to sack him and pay him the 6 million that they could have got off the Belgians, 12 million down, and still looking for a manager.
Listen, you can't write anything off.
I am trying to say Rangers make bad decisions, Scott.
This final one on the game, Hanley, McLean and Christie were off when should have been dropped. Terrible selection from Clark. I'm really tired of his selected 11 and big must-win games. Nightmare. That's incredibly harsh, I would put forward.
Yeah, I would agree.
Has a wee bit negative. Yeah, try to be positive here.
Well, do you know what? Christie didn't. We've seen Christie having better games in a Scotland shirt, no doubt about it. But he's out the team, McGinn's in the team. And there's an established sort of style and template to that. We've seen it with McTominay and McGinn getting down the sides of Dice and trying to link up and get beyond them. And we've seen this work in practice before. McLean
likes McLean, doesn't he?
I like McLean.
Games where you need to keep the ball, he likes McLean, and he has that balance.
As we said the other day, Kenny McLean's you're never going to watch a game and think, oh wow, wasn't Kenny McLean absolutely running the show tonight? It's the things that go unseen with Kenny McLean. It's the balance that he gives. It's the work, the ground that he covers that actually gives Billy Gilmore the platform to get on the ball and play his game. So I've got no issue with that either. In fact, Kenny McLean is one of the guys that's really played himself into a starting place in this team over this Nations League campaign. And he's never found wanting.
And also, we're discussing the starting 11, obviously. But as we touched on last night, the bench is strong. Get guys like Gold and Christie now to come on and impact the game.
Extra quality. And we talked about that previously as well, that when this campaign started, if you remember, it was a head count that Steve Clark was having to conduct. The bodies were falling, and that was a worry, because you think, are these guys, have they lost the love and feeling here a little bit? The thing that made them want to come back and be in every squad, all of a sudden you start to wonder, is that falling away? But do you know what? As this campaign has gone on, they seem to be enjoying it again. Maybe it just was freakish bad luck, but the numbers are coming back, and that means the quality's coming back. And as you said, 60 minutes, 70 minutes tonight, we can turn to the bench and we can put on quality. And those substitutions could be game changers.
Guys, I will let you go and get into position, get all your pre-match duties sorted. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Warsaw. If you're watching at home and contributed some comments, we really appreciate it. Keith Scott, I hope it's an absolute cracker for you tonight.
Fingers crossed.
Cheers, Daniel.
Hopefully we come out on top. And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.